Hi everyone, I'm Sue Harries. Again, I'm here to share with you some fashion news. I'm on the board of the Australia chapter of the Association of Image Consulting International. And today I have with us Lalita Lowe, who I'm very excited to introduce to you. Hi, Lalita.
Hi, Sue. How are you?
Really good, thanks. So for those of you who don't know Lalita, she is a fashion designer. She's a certified fashion stylist and an author. And today I'm going to talk to you about her book, which I have read, and I have made all these wonderful post-it note markers on here because there's just so much information on here. And whilst we can't go through everything today that she's written about, we're going to touch on a few things because we're really excited about fashion being a waste problem at the moment, and how to think more sustainably. And Lalita's going to share a lot of information about this today. But I will just share with you all a little bit of background about Lalita because she's had a fascinating journey to get to this point. So thank you for your time, Lalita, today. You really have had an incredible experience because you have studied at the Paris Fashion Institute. You have an Australian degree in fashion design and technology. You're currently designing your own label, and as well as being a certified fashion stylist to help curate their wardrobes in a sustainable way, you have a marketing degree. You have managed to sit on a board of the RMIT Fashion Advisory Board. I'm not quite sure when you sleep, Lalita. You've had an incredible exposure to fashion design in New York and Paris, and you've even spent time living in India many years ago, but it was still 4 years of your life experiencing a whole realm of wonderful experiences there that's led you to where you are today. What you shared with me when we met, Lalita, was that you got writing your book last year in 2020 when we found ourselves all in a pandemic. The world had closed. We were all stuck at home. In Australia, we were in a very strict lockdown, and you had been in the development stages of writing a book. But then you decided to devote your time to getting this published, and the book is called It's Time to Rethink Your Fashion. So Lalita, I'll stop talking now and I'll get you to chat about your book. Tell us about the main theme of your book and why you wrote it.
Sure, Sue. Firstly, thank you so much for this conversation. I've just loved talking about all of this with you before our meeting today, and it's just really, really great to be able to talk about these topics, which are so important. So I really, my book really focuses on the changing nature of the fashion industry and the escalating pace of production, and how it's forced us to for clothing to really be devalued and us to think of clothing as cheap and disposable, whereas actually it's just creating a huge amount of waste. So I was inspired to write the book really, I've had my experience in the fashion industry. After that, I came back to Australia and went back to study fashion design after that. And during that time, I realized how much fashion had changed. And that's what got me to thinking about spreading the word about sustainability and really talking about it, because I think we can't continue doing things the way we have been. People are buying more clothing than ever before, but keeping it for less time than ever before as well. So last year, when we were in lockdown, the fashion industry really ground to a halt. And it became very evident that the industry can't continue in the way it has been. I mean, we've known this for a long time, but there was no denying it then. And that's when I realized, okay, this is the time to write the book. I'd wanted to write it a couple of years earlier. It was in the process. So I really took the opportunity last year to write it. And my main message is about rethinking value, is about rediscovering the value of our clothing, which really starts with ourselves, valuing ourselves and asking ourselves why we buy the things we do. and then our choices come from there. So we really have a lot of power as consumers to how we buy our clothing.
Yes, yes, we do. And, reading the book, it does take the reader on a journey. I was talking to you, yes, before this interview saying, now that I'd finished it, you really had not, there was no stone unturned really about sharing the journey, the knowledge and why this is also very important. And so, maybe there's actually, I think about 62 chapters in the book, but I was going to, so you can share with people, that journey and the various chapters that you have without explaining every single chapter, can you just, explain to us now, that journey that you've taken people on, and kind of what topics are you covering?
Sure. Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Thanks, Sue. That's really great point about the book. It does cover a lot of things. The chapters are small so that, you can pick up a page at any point and just read a little bit and put it down, because I think that's the way we take in information these days. My intention for the book was really to highlight the issues of the industry in terms of sustainability, how it's become an overused word, and how greenwashing is happening across the board in the fashion industry, where brands are saying they're sustainable, but maybe they're not. So I talk about how consumers can navigate this and really understand how to make better choices when buying clothing. But my book is not just about buying clothing. It's really about rethinking fashion personally, locally, globally, and to understand what that means. So I get people to really look inside their wardrobes and really ask themselves questions about their own buying habits and how they feel about their clothing, how they feel about themselves and why they make the choices they do. And then to look at that in the light of the issues of the fashion industry, which are, massive pollution, massive waste, depleting natural resources of the environment, the human cost of fashion, which is the people who make our clothes, who are so important and often forgotten, and to really understand that the cost of a garment is just so important in terms of honouring all the people who make our clothes and really making sure that the fibres and the resources used to make our clothes are coming from the right places in the right ways. So I talk about that, but then I also go on to talk about the future of fashion and show, where fashion can be if we are making better choices, and if, as sustainability, the awareness of sustainability grows. So I really talk about the future of textiles and technology, how that's becoming a big part of the future of fashion and how things are changing so rapidly. We're getting new fabrics which are really responsible towards the environment. I talk about local production, how that's going to be important, more and more important. We've seen that during COVID, that fashion brands have had to produce locally, had to think about local production, and that's changed. I talk about artisans. They're going to become more important, and I've seen this a lot around the world. People are really thinking about handmade textiles, handmade garments, and how important they are to local economies, local cultures. And then I talk about just generally our own personal buying habits, where they'll be in the future.
Yeah, look, you really have covered an enormous amount. And I think because you explained the why, in all the early chapters, and then you turned it to the personal situation and then gave people some practical tips and what to do and how to do it. You've done it really well, because it even made me be going to my wardrobe, for today, thinking, what am I going to wear? I need to wear natural fibers or something, because I feel like, it raised a lot of issues myself in just my thinking and how to shop. So you've covered it really well. And as you say, fashion designers and manufacturers are improving their processes. And so how do you think it's going to impact the way that we do buy clothes in the future? Because whilst we talk about it, when it comes down to the day-to-day, how it is going to affect every single one of us, how do you think we'll be buying clothes in the future?
I think there's a lot of lot to do in terms of sustainability. And I think overall, just to preface, I think fashion production really, in many ways, isn't slowing down. And so we need to be aware of that. But I feel like we are going to change our habits because there are many brands who are coming on board now. And I've seen this, it's gone from a conversation about sustainability to, in the last couple of years, to really being action focused. And many fashion brands, both big and small, are working to become more sustainable in the true sense of the word, which is looking at all their business processes and their sourcing, where they're sourcing their textiles from. Yes. So because this is really starting to shift, fashion brands are producing their clothing more responsibly. They are changing their business practices, and they're also incorporating new methods of selling their clothes. So they're looking at rental. They're offering rental options. They're offering ways to buy clothing from old collections. So they're talking about where they're sourcing their clothes from, where they're sourcing the fibers from. They're helping us, they're educating us to become more aware. So when we engage with the fashion brands that we love, we're going to be thinking more about whether our choices are having a positive impact on the environment and people, or whether they're not. So as we shop, I think we're going to slow down. We're going to be more conscious about the choices that we make, and we're going to be choosing to engage with brands who are being more responsible. And I think overall, we're just going to choose to shop less. And we're also going to be thinking about other ways of shopping. So we're going to think about, will we maybe buy a pre-loved item rather than a new item? Will we rent our clothing if we really are not going to wear that piece more than once? So there's many things that are going to change in the future because people are really thinking about being more responsible with their choices.
Yes. So if, as you say, if all retail's changing and we're changing, it is, it's a forever moving platform really, but there is a big change about to happen.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot.
Yeah, and the other thing there's a lot of conversation around is the circular fashion movement. And as you say, retailers are even thinking about how they're going to make their items circular. Therefore, how do we, in our own wardrobe, we can also make a circular fashion movement. So can you talk a bit about how we can do that from our wardrobe?
Sure. It's a great question, and I love it whenever somebody brings up circular fashion, because I think it is the key to the future to be thinking in this way. And a lot of people have heard this term, but many haven't. But I think we'll be hearing about it more and more. And so I just want to kind of tell you what circular fashion, the definition of circular fashion. And it's really been defined as the process where clothing is defined, sourced, produced, and sold with the intention to be used and circulate responsibly and effectively in society for as long as possible in its most valuable form. So it's really about keeping things in use for as long as possible. And I think we've seen trends recently come up in terms of mending clothing, upcycling clothing, which is, turning an old garment into something new, maybe using two garments and turning it into one new garment. We're going to be seeing, we've seen things like recycled polyester, which is great. We're recycling items and turning them into new ones. And there's going to be more textile recycling happening in the future also. So, previously there haven't been many solutions, but people are really working on giving solutions so that our clothing can be recycled if it needs to be. But overall, circular fashion is really thinking about, from our point of view as a consumer or people who wear clothes, firstly, buying the right clothing that is quality and that will last, and then keeping it in our wardrobes for as long as possible, and also thinking, when I am not going to use this clothing anymore, will it be in good enough condition so that I can either give it to somebody else or resell it and keep it in use for as long as possible?
Yes, no, that's excellent. And as you say, we've all had the situation where we have a bag of clothes that we want to move on, get rid of, discard, and that's a really practical thing. I mean, it's probably one of the most common things people, do, but, perhaps seasonally as well, they're coming into their now spring, summer wardrobe here in Australia, and, I've got to do my wardrobe out, or, I've got to get rid of these things I'm not going to wear this summer. Can you give us some ideas about, when you've got that bag of clothes, what's a good idea to how to get rid of that bag of clothes? What would you suggest?
Well, firstly, I think when you're looking at clothing that you have in your wardrobe that you're no longer wearing, I think firstly think about why aren't I wearing it? Can I wear it for longer? Is it just that I don't know how to wear it? Can I myself keep it in use for longer rather than throw it out? Can I tailor it? Maybe I put on weight or lost weight, so can I tailor it so that it does fit me properly? Because many times people just don't realize the changes that they can make to a garment. So it's firstly thinking about what we can do to keep it. And I think if we can't keep it any longer, or if we've changed, our life has changed, our lifestyle has changed, because this does happen. And, we have lifestyle changes. We get divorced and we want a new look, or we do put on weight and we need to change clothes and move them on. So then what's best is to first thinking about people in our own circle of influence who we can either give that clothing to or resell it. Then to think about reselling it maybe on a platform online, like Vestia Collective, The Real Real. I have a little tiny section on my website where I resell clothing. So amazing. We can sell it on eBay, so that kind of thing. I think the more that we can control where the clothing goes, the better. I think the last resort should be sending it to an op shop or a charity store, because we don't know where that clothing is going to go. I think charity stores are becoming more conscious about what they do with the clothing, and they really are wanting people to buy it. But a lot of it we just don't know, and we have, there have been conversations around clothing being sent off to developing nations where the clothing doesn't actually get sold and it gets sent to landfill. This doesn't always happen, but because I know that I recently spoke with the CEO of one of our charitable organisations here, and he was really saying that they are making every effort to repair and mend clothing so that it does get sold if the clothing is not in the right condition. But we do need to be, repairing our clothing as well before we move it on. So there's lots to think about.
Yeah, look, there really is. One of the things that I like to end an interview with is about giving people, 3 sort of good ideas about, what they can personally do. But, there were 3 things that were really, fantastic things that you talked about in your book that I want to highlight. And so I think we might talk about those. And, the 3 things, analogies that you were talking about was the relationship that we have with our clothes, the well-being that we have creates with our clothes, and then the value of self and the impact really on our clothing. And those 3 things, relationship, well-being and value of self, those 3 things I thought were just, fantastic words that you used, and how, I think we'll finish off with that, and you can just explain that a little bit more of just, again, how that can improve fashion waste.
Yeah, sure. And it's funny, I've got this little card. Oh, you can't see it properly. This little card that I give out with my book. And it has this quote inside of it that says, "To rethink our fashion is to value ourselves, the people who make our clothes, and the well-being of nature." And it's really my belief that it's our own view of ourselves that that creates all of our choices around fashion. And sometimes we buy clothing because we don't value ourselves enough, when we either overspend or we buy the wrong clothes. and that can lead to waste. And I think when we really value ourselves, we make great choices, and that includes, you know, buying quality clothing that is going to last a long time, buying clothing that really suits our body shape and who we are. And I think, you know, that's where with personal styling, it makes such a difference, because it really gets us to understand what suits us the most. But I think overall, you know, when we value ourselves, we value the choices we make. We don't rush into decisions. We're more considered. We think about the impacts that our choices have. So I think there's a real flow-on effect from that. And it's so important. And I've definitely noticed that when I meet with clients myself, that I think a lot of the decisions that people make are when they're not feeling good about themselves, that they make the wrong decisions. So overall, it's my belief it's so important to honour ourselves.
Yeah, look, that's fantastic. I'd love to just show the book cover again, so people can see what they can find. And you're going to help us to find the book. You can tell us where to find it and how we can get our hands on it. And thank you so much for sending me this copy. I've really, truly valued reading it and the time to chat to people about it. And again, you know, all my beautiful notes here is things I'm going to go back to, because, you know, it's just such valuable information. So well done on getting your book out there, and I'm really enjoying helping to spread the message, and yeah, appreciate your time. But please do tell us, where can we find it?
Thank you so much for your kind words. That's really lovely. And you can find the book on my website. And the thing about getting it from the website is that inside the cover there's this beautiful, this is my own sticker in the book. It's actually not there in the book. It's my copy. But you get this beautiful pink color on the inside of the book if you purchase it from my website. Otherwise, it's available globally on Amazon or on Booktopia. So really, in most major places that books are sold, it's there. And
what's your website? Can you?
My website is lalitalowe.com.
LalitaLowe.com.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And I was just thinking, you asked me a little while ago about the 3 things that I would want to offer people, just to be more conscious with their fashion, to create less waste. And my 3 things would be, firstly, to think like grandma. So in the times of our grandparents, they bought less clothing, they had quality clothing, and they held on to it for longer, and they repaired it. So that would be my number 1. The second one would be, when buying clothing or when about to wear clothing, if you're ever in doubt, don't do it. So don't buy it, or just don't wear it. If you don't feel great, don't wear it. And the third one would be to rethink your own relationship with fashion, as my book talks about, because I think when we rethink our own beliefs and perceptions around fashion and what that means and style, then everything flows on from there. So they're my 3 tips.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you again for your time today and having a good chat about that, and look forward to sharing all of this. And we'll catch up again soon, because, you know, you're doing your own label at the moment, and maybe, you know, once you've got that up and going, we can have another chat. And because you've got all of these things very, you know, front of mind as you're doing your own label. So it'd be good to share that in the future as well.
I'd love to.
Yeah, lovely.
Let's have another chat. Thank you so
lovely.
much.
Okay, Lalita, thanks so much. Okay, terrific. Bye for now.